Hello. Today I have a stopover in Dubai. I'm flying with Emirates from Auckland through to Rome, and I'm in the Emirates Business Class Lounge in Concourse B. And here they have a dedicated Moet Chandon Champagne Bar. So I thought this was an opportunity that was far too good to miss. So in my glass, I currently have a rather generous pour of Moet Chandon's Grand Vintage 2016. So, as you're likely aware, Moet Chandon, the largest champagne producer in the world, based in Epernay, the town that is the centre of the champagne trade. Moet Chandon trace their founding back to 1743, when Claude Moet, a Dutchman, set up the company. However, it's largely his grandson, Jean-Remi, who is credited with having built the house up to its now preeminent position. Certainly, by the 19th century, Moet Chandon was internationally known and was exporting their wines worldwide. Now, partnerships developed in the 1970s and the 1980s with the cognac firm Hennessy and the fashion house Louis Vuitton created the current company Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy, and that group now owns quite a number of famous names in the wine world in Champagne, as well as Moet Chandon. They have Dom Perignon as a premier cuvée, they have Krug as another prestige brand, they own Veuve Clicquot, and they make sparkling wines as far afield as California, Brazil, Australia, Spain, New Zealand, and more recently they've started ventures in India and China. Beyond the field of sparkling wines, they also own a couple of prestigious estates in Bordeaux, namely Chateaux Cheval Blanc in Saint-Emilion and Chateau d'Yquem, the fabulous sweet wine producing estate in Sauternes. In the New World, they own the Cape Montel estate in Western Australia and also Cloudy Bay in New Zealand's Marlborough region. Within the Champagne region itself, Moet Chandon grow about 25% of the fruit that they need, relying on growers to produce the other 75%. So they have fruit coming to them from all the principal subregions of Champagne. So from the Montagne de Reims, the Vallée de la Marne, the Côte de Blanc, Cézanne and the Aube. In all, they have just short of 1,200 hectares of vineyard, with vineyards in 280 of the 323 villages ranked as cru within the Champagne appellation. So of their vineyards, 50% of those are from villages classified as Grand Cru, and 25% of those are in villages that are classified as Premier Cru. Now, 2016 was a relatively wet, cool vintage. A wet, cool winter resulted in a certain amount of mildew, which overall reduced crop size. There was a rainy spring, but then that was followed by a dry summer, which then went on to lead to fruit loss due to water stress. However, conditions enabled fruit to ripen well, and particularly Meunier produced beautifully perfumed fruit in 2016. Now, the fruit was hand-picked, was gently crushed, and the earlier pressings will have been used to make this wine, with what's referred to as the tails of the press being run off and used for other wines. Fermentation took place in temperature-controlled stainless steel tanks, and the wine will have systematically undergone malolactic conversion in tank as well. Now, the 2016 Grand Vintage is actually predominantly Chardonnay, with 48% of Chardonnay in the blend, followed up by 34% of Pinot Noir and 18% of Meunier. Obviously, being a vintage, there's no reserve wine included in this. Following blending, the wine was bottled with sugar and yeast and did its second fermentation in the bottle to produce the bubbles. The wine was then laid in Moet Chandon cellars in Epernay to age. Now, Moet Chandon had the largest area of cellars of any champagne producer, and the wine stayed in bottle in the cellars for 6 years, with the dead yeast having finished fermentation, breaking down in the bottle, and that will have been imparting toasty flavours, but also adding a bit of weight and richness to the wine, which adjusts the surface tension and allows smaller bubbles to form, which will rise persistently. As I say, the wine stays in the cellars for 6 years. Prior to Disgorgement, the bottles will have gone through a process called Riddling, in which they're agitated, probably by machine, a gyropalette, but possibly by hand, to manipulate them so that the yeast breaks its contact with the side of the glass and slips down the bottle, ending up in the neck of the bottle, where it will form a plug that can then be frozen. The bottle can be quickly opened, the pressure in the bottle will expel that plug of yeast, the bottle can be topped up with fresh wine, at which stage a dosage is put in there of 5 grams per litre of sugar to provide a touch of sweetness, just to balance the quite sharp acidity that the champagne will have. With 5 grams per litre of sugar, this wine can still be labelled as an extra brut. Evidently 2016 was the 77th time that Moet Chandon have released a vintage wine. So let's see what it's like, shall we? Wine has a pale yellow colour, and there is a persistent bead of really quite small bubbles that's still rising regularly, despite the fact that I'd had this poured slightly before I started the tasting, and I've been talking for a little while. Given the 6 years of yeast age that this wine has had, I would expect that. So let's see what we make of the aromas, shall we? Yes, the aromas here are distinctly yeasty. There's certainly a biscuitiness, more of a sort of a yeasty brioche note. To be honest, there's almost a sort of a touch of something like a yeast extract, like Marmite or Vegemite or something like that. And that's overlaying fresh, lemony fruit aromas. There's definitely a biscuitiness, a toastiness, perhaps even a slight complexing fermentation note of flintiness. So it's for taste. There is a lovely, soft, smooth mousse. The wine is dry, it's crisp. There's a beautiful lemony element getting caught up with the yeasty, biscuity components, and the two are working together. And to the finish of that, there's almost a sort of a mandarin orange peel sort of note coming through. Toastiness I was talking about has some mineral note. There are hints of salinity, but then there are also slight flinty touches. The acidity is lovely. There's a freshness to the wine. It's clean. And despite the fact there are a lot of yeasty elements, the power of the fruit is enough that it's the fruit that's taking the lead with the wine. As I say, moving on to those orangey notes, I'm now almost getting notes of candied peel, those sort of elegant, almost some lemon meringue pie notes on the finish that you can get from some really elegant bottle-aged wines. And bear in mind, this wine will have had 3 or 4 years aging under cork as well. The flavours are long, and good acidity is keeping them lively and fresh. The wine's light to medium bodied. The yeasty notes are actually giving it a roundness and a richness, but the fruit is giving it freshness and definition rather than necessarily weight and roundness. I think this is quite a delicious wine, and I do like its elegance. Looking at the Wine Searcher aggregated critic score, this gets 91 out of 100, and I completely agree with that. It has elegance, it has complexity, its different components are working well together. It's got lovely length, and there's good development of the flavours as they move towards the finish. While this may not be a wine with the most complex yeast autolysis flavours, it may not be the most challenging style of champagne that you'll come across. It's certainly well made, it's precise, it's got some lovely complexity and some really good fresh fruit flavours. Given the fact that I'm already sort of starting to see those lovely sort of lemon meringue pie notes of bottle development, I'd suggest this is a wine that's fully mature. But it's probably also one that you could keep for 4 or 5 years and see its yeasty complexity joined with fruit development to give it some extra aspects in the glass. So thank you very much for joining me. I do hope you've enjoyed the tasting. I do apologise for the fact there's quite a lot of background noise here. They are doing some work here, mostly with angle grinders. I know it's a little way away, and I do hope the noise cancelling microphone is coping with most of that and you can hear me. If you have enjoyed the tasting, do please press the like button. That would be fantastic. If you'd like to watch more of these tastings, it would be really helpful if you could consider signing up and subscribing to my YouTube channel. The more followers I have, the more I will be able to do to develop it. On that note, if you have any friends you think might like to watch the video, do please feel free to pass it on to them. I'd really appreciate your recommendation in that way. And if you have any questions or comments, please do pop those in the comments box below. I'd love to know what you think about the wines I'm looking at, the tastings I'm doing, or anything else that relates to that. I will of course leave a link in the notes below to the Wine Searcher webpage for this vintage of this wine, so that you can see if it's available near you and at what price. So thank you once again for taking the time to watch my video, and I do hope that maybe you'll manage to make some time and come and join me for another video in the very near future. Till then, bye for now.